there's this activity to commemorate how to say, basically it's to express the support of the people, practitioners of Falun Gong in China against the persecution that was started on July 20th, 22 years ago. All right. So, and then the same kind of activities happening all over the world. So we are very honored to have a guest connected through online here. And he's the spokesperson of the Falun Dafa Information Center, Levi Brody. And can we have the Levi? Hi, Levi.
Hi, good to have you.
Yeah, good evening. Can you tell us, audience, okay, many of our viewers may not know Falun Gong. What is Falun Gong?
Well, Falun Gong is a Buddhist-based spiritual practice that has a lineage going back thousands of years. But it was only first introduced to the public in China in 1992. It became an instant sensation, and in just a few years, 70 to 100 million people were practicing throughout China.
Okay, and then now, so we learned, we were there, we were reporting. Okay, we learned about this persecution happened on the July 20th, 22 years ago. Why did the Chinese government persecute this practice?
Well, it's a very tragic story. Throughout the 1990s, Falun Gong was very, very popular in China. 100 million people is a lot of people, even in a country like China. So it was a very popular thing. People were having a lot of health benefits. It was something that really captured the essence of traditional Chinese culture, or rose from that essence of traditional Chinese culture, which is something that the Chinese people had been without with, as you guys well know, for decades, because the Communist Party had been trying to instill Marxism and communism in the Chinese people. So it was very popular. So popular, in fact, that in 1999, the top leader of the Communist Party at that time, a man named Jiang Zemin, decided that the group had become too big, and he wanted to start a political campaign to build up a cult of personality on himself. And he thought Falun Gong was a perfect target. They were peaceful. They seemed like an easy target. And so he started this whole campaign to crush Falun Gong because they were so popular and because he wanted to build up a political base around himself.
Yeah, so Levi, as we have been reporting the Falun Gong practitioners such kind of event every year in the past, 20-some years. And so how do you think, why Falun Gong practitioners do such event? What, kind of effect you would like to reach?
Well, I think there's a few very important issues that come along with the Falun Gong persecution. The first issue is a pure human rights and moral issue. People who are just trying to be good people and live by Falun Gong's principles, which are truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, to be wrongfully imprisoned, and tortured, or killed for that is an enormous injustice, and that alone is reason that everyone needs to speak out and advocate for Falun Gong in this case. There's a second reason, and that is, Falun Gong in China was everywhere. It is the Chinese people, far more than the ruling Communist Party. And so as this persecution has unfolded, Falun Gong community, both inside China and outside China, have become very courageous and proficient at disclosing not only the injustice against themselves, but also the injustices that the CCP has meted out on the rest of the world for the last 70 years. In other words, Falun Gong really is the biggest whistleblower to the CCP's crimes. And so as the CCP and all of its influence looms large over our country and many countries in the West, it's the Falun Gong story that's going to be most informative about the nature of that threat and perhaps how we should counter it. So I think those are two reasons why it's very important for days like you had it in San Francisco there, where the message of what's happening to Falun Gong is brought to people and they're made aware of what's going on in China.
So now, Levi, actually, I talked to some of the bystanders and the onlookers at the rally and the parade, and actually, some of them are aware of what's going on, but many of them are not aware of Falun Gong being persecuted in China. So, but it's been over 20 years, and so what do you think is the reason still a lot of people are not aware of it?
Well, there are a couple things to note about this. First of all, in the first 2 or 3 years, there was actually a lot of media coverage people may not remember. The Wall Street Journal won a Pulitzer Prize specifically for reporting how Falun Gong were being tortured and killed around China. But around 2002, 2003, the reporting fell off a cliff. And there's been virtual silence on this issue for all these years. Why is that? Well, it's certainly not for lack of evidence, because if you look at all major human rights groups like Freedom House and Amnesty, or our own Department of State's annual human rights reports, United Nations, year after year after year, there are reports about Falun Gong being tortured and killed in China. So the evidence is there. So why isn't it being reported? I think this goes to the heart of why the CCP is a danger to all of us, and that is, in the Falun Gong case, the CCP, for one, has been very proficient at using its diplomatic missions all around the world to pressure our government, to pressure our companies, including our media, to not talk about Falun Gong, to marginalize Falun Gong. We've had people defecting from China who actually testified to this, that a significant amount of staff and resources and time in diplomatic missions around the world are dedicated to suppressing Falun Gong. So that's one issue. The second issue that we can't ignore is that media companies are just that. They're companies. And like many companies in the West, certainly throughout the United States, their ownership has significant financial deals tied up in China and with the CCP. And at the very least, that represents a significant conflict of interest to secure that financial deal, and then on the other hand, to report accurately and completely about the persecution of Falun Gong. There is a complete conflict of interest there.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Levi, for bringing us such information. For people to find out more information about Falun Gong and the persecution, where can they go?
We run a nonprofit organization based in New York. We have operations around the world with people gathering information out of China and analyzing that and publishing news. You could go to our website at faluninfo.net. That's FALUNINFO.net, faluninfo.net.
Okay, faluninfo.net. All right, thank you, Levi, for coming to our show.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
So basically, at this time, this peaceful group has been very resilient. Okay, they don't yield even under very, very brutal persecution. For that reason, it has become, internally in the Chinese government's document, has become the biggest enemy to the China's security force, because they virtually never run into a big group that do not yield. Every group yield. If you don't yield, they're going to break you, they're going to kill you, they're going to torture you, kill you. And in this group, the reasons because of their principles, truth, compassion, and tolerance. I interviewed a number of them, and they don't yield. And because of that, they automatically become the biggest enemy.
Right, and as Levi Brody just introduced, Falun Gong actually, one thing came out of the persecution is that the meditation practice actually spread around the world, including in the United States. So if you notice, including Levi, right, he's, many actually non-Chinese pick up the practice. So actually I did a couple of interviews with the participants of the San Francisco event. Just to, I think people are curious, why Westerners, including Caucasian, African Americans or Indian Americans actually all picked up this practice.
So he shared the exercises. We began doing them just 15 minutes, So 15 minutes we would do the exercises outside before lunch. And I noticed even that 15 minutes was enough to get my appetite going, When I would sit on the chair all day, like lunchtime, my stomach would be growling hungry, but I couldn't eat, and mind was very racing all the time. So just doing the exercise a few times, I noticed that my appetite would improve. It would feel like my pores were opening up, and body was just feeling very loose. And then I would easily be able to go back and eat my lunch without feeling like I was forcing it down my throat, So that alone was a great benefit for me, So I continued to learn and learn. And after I learned the exercises, I just wanted to know more about it, that what more is there. So he suggested that I read Juan Falun. So I read the book, and then reading that answered pretty much almost every question that I had in my mind.
My ability to focus and be calmer, I think that changed. My health is real good. My attitude is usually real good. I listen to people more. I work on not being so interested in just me and being more compassionate.
So
Her smile is shining there. I don't know whether you see that.
Yeah, and she was like passing out leaflets, talking to the tourists over there. So I asked her, Linda, why you want to talk to the people about the persecution.
I think that it's really important that we know what is going on in China, because there are a lot of close connections that we have with China, both in through business and just seeing the way that China is influencing our life in so many ways.
Actually, our reporter in New York had an interview with a Wall Street guy, and actually that's back in May. Okay, in May in New York, there was also a similar parade by the Falun Gong practitioners.
I've been to China once, and I absolutely believe that, Dr. King said this, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So it's easy to look at this and say, oh, that's over in China. But we're dealing with some of the same things here. It's disturbing to the level of what's happening there. Organ harvesting, I've never even heard of that. I mean, I have, but in movies. So I'm glad to see so many people here, but it makes me think for every person that's here, there's literally 100,000, millions who are dealing with it in another country. It's sad. I mean, it really is. It's sad that we are in 2021 still dealing with human rights abuses to this level. But it's, my hope is that more people will see this, not just as a parade, because it's so easy to see it like that. This isn't an event. This is a call, a cry for somebody somewhere to do something to bring justice.